Hey guys, it's Ashley and Davey from Utah Trikes here again doing a ride-in review. We're riding two trikes that are completely unlike the racing trikes that we've been riding. These are the Sunseeker Eco Tad and the Sunseeker Eco Delta. These trikes here are less than $1,500. Now I know that pricing right now is a little volatile and they may change, but I anticipate that these prices are going to be about $1,500 for at least the rest of the year. You can check our website for current pricing. But we're going to go ride these trikes, which are two of our most popular trikes, and we're going to see what are the differences, what do we like about these trikes, what do we maybe not like about these trikes. We're just going to have a good time.
Yeah, so let's go out, try a Tadpole and a Delta, and compare them a little bit.
Okay, so I'm going to start out on the Eco Tad, and Davey here, he's got the...
I've got the Eco Delta.
Okay, and again, we're going to wear our helmets because it's the right thing to do.
Indeed,
It's the right thing to do. So this time on our ride, we're not going to take our regular loop where we're taking the big hill. Frankly, it's later in the day and I don't really feel like climbing too much on these. So today we're going to take another scenic route that's near us here across the intersection. So be prepared to encounter some traffic and let's go.
All right.
Now, one thing I'll say right off the bat, this trike just feels very comfortable and it feels very leisurely. As we start riding here, we're going to notice that both of these trikes have the exact same gearing.
Yeah, 1 speed in the front, 7 in the rear, right?
Yep. So they're 7-speed gears. And not only that, but it's the exact same gear ratio. So we've got a 38 tooth single chainring up front, and then we have a 7-speed 11 to 32 tooth cassette in the back. So it's going to be interesting as we swap trikes to know like how they feel different.
Yeah, and see how just these different riding styles are impacted by the exact same gearing. So I think that'll be interesting.
You know, they're very similar, the trikes, in some ways, although that they look drastically different, right? But the seats are both the same, essentially. They have a different clamping mechanism on the bottom, but the seats are pretty much the same.
We're looking like we've got like the same seats. It's got a very similar like body frame, just different shape. We've got we've got the same grips, the same gearing, the same brakes, the same pedals. We've got almost everything the same. It's just in a different form.
Right. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Now, one characteristic here of these trikes is the horizontal handlebars.
Yeah.
So they both have horizontal handlebars. The Delta obviously has a more bicycle style one-piece handlebar that has adjustable height on it. And then this has each a left and right handlebar, and you can adjust the angle a little bit on these, but it feels a lot different than like a trike with vertical handlebars where my hands would be more down here.
Yeah, you just got a lot more leverage to really be turning that trike. And same thing here. It's not that I need as much because I only have one tire compared to your two, but it really helps when, I don't know, it's really unique. Like the biggest thing you feel out of this one is how high up these handlebars are.
Well, you're higher up anyway.
Yeah, it's
like,
all high
you know, and it's interesting because the Eco Tad I've always considered as one of the higher seated trikes that we carry. It really is a different experience when you have these bicycle style handlebars. Like in one hand here on this particular trike, the Eco Tad, my hands are much further apart than on a lot of other trikes. And it's almost deceiving because it almost feels like my hands are wider than the trike itself.
Yeah. With something on the cat trike, you're really like in the cockpit, and those tightly set handlebars really just make you feel a lot thinner, kind of more in control, I would say.
With the Delta, with that long handlebar there, it's gonna be much more bike-like.
Oh yeah, much more bike-like. And it's also really interesting to feel how like touchier the steering is compared to something like a tadpole where you've got to push two wheels. You just got one on a single little pivot here. You've got a lot of wiggle room.
That's one thing that I think we want to know as we ride more and as we switch are the very clear differences between a tadpole trike with two wheels in the front and then the Delta style with the one wheel in the front.
Yeah.
You know, how does that affect our steering and handling and ultimately your riding experience?
Yeah. On these Deltas, it's not built for those high speeds. These Deltas are really just built for these leisurely kind of like stroll through the neighborhood, ride through the park kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel. Right now we're going at about 8-9 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it just feels very comfortable.
Yeah, it's super comfortable.
I'm very at leisure, and clearly I'm in my highest gear, and I don't know that I would necessarily want a lot more gearing on this.
Because one thing I'm noticing with this gearing, no matter if I'm in number 1 or number 7, like highest or lowest, like I'm in the highest right now. I just don't think I'd be going that fast. I couldn't push it too much. Like we're going this comfortable like 9-10 miles per hour, and that feels like I could maybe go up to 11 or 12 with the extent of this gear and not really push it farther than that. Like it's great for starting up, and the higher gears are great for cruising, but you aren't racing on these things, or at least on this Delta, you are not racing.
Well, and granted, that's really not who these trikes are for.
Yeah, definitely.
As we ride these trikes and as we talk about these trikes, it's really important to remember that sub $2,000 and especially a sub $1,500 price range,
yeah,
that is going to enable more people to ride a trike, to get out there and ride.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that are attracted to these trikes are the people that they just want to do that. They just want to get out and ride.
Yeah.
They want to have fun cycling experiences for various reasons. They, you know, they're not riding a two-wheel bike maybe. Maybe they never learned to ride a two-wheel bike, or they don't want to fall anymore, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like you're on these trikes to keep it simple and just have a good time.
Yeah.
And for $1,500, they're both really accessible price points that you can just have that accessibility and a comfortable ride. Because like this seat, it's just like a plain mesh seat, no padding. But for these really relaxed rides, I've never had a problem with any of the Sunseeker seats.
Yeah, no, there is a foam pad in the bottom part of the seat mesh.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of being on top of the seat like a lot of other trikes do, it's more internal.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a cushion between the upper part of the pad and the lower part of the mesh.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys can see this here, but we've got a little bit of a duck pond out here. So we've got all these ducks. 'Tis the season for duckery. Is that a word?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
You can make it one.
Yeah, I'm gonna make that a new word. You know, this is easy to ride and handles well. You know, it's been pretty busy on the road. We've been dealing with a little bit of traffic, and I feel very visible.
Yeah.
Like we're both sitting upright.
Especially on this Delta.
Yeah, you're sitting up even higher than me.
Compared to those racing trikes, you have so many gears. It's so overwhelming to try and find like the right gear. I was hardly ever using like the front third gear. I was just kind of staying in the second gear. So for these leisurely rides, when you just got a 1x7, it just keeps it super simple, and you don't have to overthink your gearing or like starting and stopping what you should be in, putting down the front gear and the back gear. It's just, okay, I'm stopping, put it down to 1. Really easy to switch between the two, like switch between all of the gears to get where you need to be comfortably, you know?
Not having chain rings up front just makes it really easy. Like I have 7 speeds. and I go 1 through 7.
Yeah.
You know? Now, one thing that as we're talking about gearing here, both of these trikes are equipped with the twist grips. The twist grips are really designed for the horizontal handlebars, like what we've got here. They do work well, although I will mention that one issue that does come up every once in a while with customers that have either of these trikes is that the shifters themselves can feel a bit harder to twist.
Yeah.
Especially when you're going into that low gear where the chain's getting pulled into the higher chainring in the back.
Yeah.
And for some people, that twisting motion is a little hard. So I will say that the Eco Tad especially is probably our #1 most upgraded trike.
Oh yeah, because with such a small price, like with such a low price range, you can add so many things and really expand your budget that way.
Yeah, now I'll tell you guys, there are a lot of people out there that they take the Eco Tad as a platform and they build upon it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about some of these upgrades later, but you can really customize this bike to your heart's content. In a lot of ways, I think it's worth that customization.
Yeah.
Depending on what the rider's looking for, you know.
Like what I've seen most on these Eco Tads specifically is that when people upgrade them, they're coming in and they're trying to just get a motorized trike because they just have a really hard time like pedaling long distances and are just trying to keep up with the other people in their life that don't have that issue.
Right.
So most people that I see getting Eco Tads are just trying to get a motor, and it's the perfect platform to just upgrade to that.
You know, being the most entry-level trike at that lowest price point, adding a motor on it makes it the least expensive motorized trike.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
But
And the Eco Delta can also have a motor put on it.
Yeah, you don't see that as much though.
Yeah, you don't. Well, one thing I will say, Davey, about adding a motor really to any of these trikes is to use caution and get a motor system with the realistic expectation that it is going to help you climb hills and accelerate faster.
Yeah.
But it is not going to turn either one of these trikes into a racing trike.
Oh yeah.
So you'll want to be careful. You know, when you add a motor to any trike, you'll want to make sure that you know what the limits of the motor are. So other popular upgrades are going to vary because the models are so different. So
yeah.
On the Eco Tad, it's pretty common that people will add a different style of gears, like the internally geared hubs, like the Inviolo, the Alpine, and sometimes even the roll-off.
Yeah.
And those gear options will completely reduce, how hard it is to shift.
Yeah.
Now on the Delta, upgrading the gears is really not practical because the rear gear cluster is actually built onto that rear axle.
Yeah.
So other components that these two share, the brake levers themselves, which are both locking levers where you pull the lever, push the pin to engage it.
Yeah.
And they work very well. The Eco Tad has a separate right and left brake, whereas the Eco Delta has
a front and a rear.
One disc brake in the back.
And then a rim brake up front.
And a rim brake up front. Now, what's interesting too to note here is that the Eco Delta is one-wheel drive. So even though there's two wheels on the back, there's one brake that brakes the axle, and then there's one driven wheel, and then the other wheel is allowed to freewheel when you're going around corners.
Yeah. Unlike on a Tadpole trike, with these rear-wheel drive trikes on the Deltas, turning can be an issue if they are both turning at the same speed.
Yeah,
So-
and we noticed that, you know, on our quads with
Yeah.
solid axles.
Uh-huh.
And we have differentials and everything. Most people are not going to run into any kind of traction issues on one of these versus the other.
Yeah.
Like on the Delta there, more of your weight's actually over the rear wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a little bit more traction there anyway.
Yeah.
So we did talk a little bit about the seat when we first started and how the main seat frame on both of these Trikes is pretty much the same. There's a different clamping mechanism on both of them, but these are steel frame. They slide along the whole frame of the Trike, making these Trikes the easiest Trikes to share.
Yeah.
Like if you have one of these and you want to go out riding with somebody, pretty much if it's a kid or if it's a 6'5" tall dude, you can adjust it with the quick release, at least to get it moderately fitted there.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if this is your main Trike, either one of these, you will want to really dial in the fitting for you.
Yeah. But just like if your grandkids come over or your friend wants to try it out, it's super easy to just adjust and get out a passable length so pedaling isn't uncomfortable if the size difference is too big, which is a pretty common thing. I think I've seen a lot of people whenever they're buying Trike and they want to share it with people, so it makes it really simplified.
All right, guys, so Davey and I, we stopped here at this park and we're gonna switch Trikes. So Davey's gonna get to ride on the Eco Tad.
And you can ride on the Eco Delta.
All right, so let's do this, guys.
Perfect. Big difference already.
Yeah, so right off the
Jeez.
bat, Davey, just even getting on this Trike, like it's a noticeable difference. Like
Yeah.
that seat height, getting on, I just feel so much taller.
Oh, seriously.
And
I feel so much shorter.
And I know it's just a few inches, but I really feel like I'm really up high now. So this is kind of cool, actually. The thing that's really noticeable too is the pedaling position is a bit different. Because the frame on the Delta Trike goes up a little bit more, my feet are up a little bit higher.
Yeah.
They're more like straight out in front of me.
I was feeling a lot more reclined on the Delta because this one I'm sitting really upright. Feels like I'm sitting more in just a chair moving forward instead of that one where you really feel kind of laid back, you know?
You know what's cool about this Delta though?
Huh.
Is like this just kind of feels like I'm on a cruiser bike.
Oh, yeah.
Cruiser bike. This extra seat height, pretty incredible actually. Like I can see over these fences into these fields.
Yeah, the field of view is great on that. Yeah. I will say, I do really like these lower handlebars. These are just both two really leisurely Trikes. So I was finding myself just like steering with one hand on that one. On this one, I'm just kind of like resting my hands on these horizontal bars.
Right. Yeah, the steering is really couldn't be more different.
Oh yeah, seriously.
You know, the handling on this, it feels, I would say more bicycle-like, but that extra length and the way the handlebar kind of swings out a little bit.
It's all the difference comparing the two.
And I feel like I have so much leverage, like you said, where I'm almost inclined to just ride with one hand.
Yeah.
You know?
And like the steering is so just loose and easy to use that it really makes no difference when you've got just like one hand. You can still fully control the thing.
Right.
Same with this too. I just kind of rest in my hands, but I can still really easily maneuver if I need to. It just feels very relaxed.
Right. I think that if someone is looking into getting a Trike without spending a lot of money, either one of these Trikes is a good choice.
Definitely.
Which one to choose, I think, really kind of comes down to a lot of little factors.
Yeah.
In my experience, what I find to be the most common reason that people choose the Delta style Trike is because they really want that additional seat height.
Yeah.
They want they're interacting with traffic. They want to be up at a level where cars can see them easy. I definitely get that.
And it's also like when you don't have that lower and upper body strength to really lift yourself up out of some of these recumbent seats, a Delta Trike with its really raised seat, you don't have to lift yourself up at all. You just put your feet down and you stand up.
Now, one thing I will say about the Eco Tad, those horizontal handlebars, they're a one-piece steel tubing.
Yeah.
And they function in a lot of ways just like your easy entry aids on other trikes.
Great handhold.
Yeah, so they're actually made to support the rider's body weight. So you could use those easily to get in and out of the trike.
Yeah, like the Eco Tad and Eco Delta compared, it's really not that hard to get out of the Eco Tad either. Because they're both just two entirely different ways to get in and out of the trike. For that one, I've worked with people who aren't able to lift their legs up. So they have to back into the boom on these trikes. So
I didn't feel like getting on either of these trikes was difficult.
yeah.
But this trike, the frame is a lot higher, and you absolutely have to lift your leg over that frame.
Yeah.
Where on the Eco Tad, you can shuffle in. I've seen people that can barely lift their legs, and they've been able to just kind of slowly back up over the boom,
yeah,
and then sit down.
Exactly. So it really just depends on like physical ability. I've seen a lot of people go for the Delta just because they don't have that lower and upper body strength to lift themselves up. But then I've seen people opt for the Tadpole here because they just can't lift their legs.
Now, another reason that I've seen that's really popular for the Eco Delta here, and I think does kind of give it a unique edge, is the ability to join two of them together.
Oh yeah.
We actually have a hitch mount that attaches right on the back, and then you remove the front wheel on one of them and hook it right onto the back, so you can kind of have a chain or a train going, you know?
Who needs a tandem bike when you can just swap them back and forth, just connect them?
So in a lot of ways, the ability to hook two Delta trikes together eliminate the need for a tandem for a lot of people, and specifically because they're easier to store, they're a little more adaptable in terms of, you know, each person can have their own rig, and if they want to ride separately, they can. So
a lot more options that way.
Yeah. Now, other interesting features about this are the handlebar position, and you start to notice that the more you ride. I think I find the Eco Tad handlebars are a bit more comfortable. Having your hands a little wider, they're, like you said, you could just rest your hands on there.
Yeah.
And I feel like here, my hands are a little closer together than what I would like. But again, I think if you take the time to really fine tune the placement and everything, it's not going to be an issue.
I can take my hands off all the way. It's a bit more stable.
Yeah, so that is one thing, guys. So if I let go of the Delta here, I don't know if you could see this, but you know, the steering does tend to wobble a little bit more.
A lot like a standard bike.
Yeah,
when you let go of the handlebars.
Yeah, so the Delta is not a trike that I'm going to ride without having my hands on the handlebars.
Got to have at least one on there.
Yeah.
Like here on the Tadpole, these two wheels stabilize it a lot more. It's a lot less moving around. Earlier, we kind of mentioned the gearing, how they're the exact same. We want to kind of like compare them side by side. Have you noticed any like big differences in the gearing with,
you know, the gearing feels the same, but the pedaling position is a bit different.
Yeah.
So I do notice that, and in my opinion, it makes this Delta feel like I'm in a higher gear than I was on the Eco Tad.
Yeah.
The pedaling feels a little harder, but it also feels like I could pedal a little faster for the same gearing on the Delta than I could on the Tadpole. But some of that may just be in my head.
Yeah.
You
And,
know?
like, the biggest thing for me is that on this Eco Tad, I'm feeling like I'm pedaling down. Whereas around the Delta, I was really pushing out. It was just the way that we're sitting here, right?
Exactly.
So the way that those gears translate between the two is very similar, but you can really feel a difference there. Just
Yeah, and they're
on
both
the pedals
they're both
position alone.
comfortable.
Yeah.
So one thing I mentioned earlier was storage.
Yeah.
The Delta Trikes, you can actually tip up on their end where the front of the trike just points straight up in the air and then it rests on the back of the seat.
Oh, yeah.
Where the Eco Tad, on the other hand, you would need to have some sort of hooks on your garage or wall.
Yeah. To change the orientation at all. Because, like, there's no way to prop this up, not just on all three wheels.
Right. So we did talk about how the seat frames themselves can be slid along the frame
Yeah.
of the trike. Another aspect of the seat adjustment is the pins on the back of the seat where you have the seat stays,
Oh, yeah.
and you can pull the pin out and then just slide it in or out.
Yeah.
And that's the same on both of them. So this is really an adjustable trike.
Oh, super adjustable. And like that rear seat bracket is so easy to adjust, especially compared to other trikes. It's just pull the thing out, adjust it, put it back in. Even if you're swapping from person to person and need to adjust it for each rider, it goes super fast and it's not a whole ordeal like on any other trike. Even on the other trikes that have the chain gobbler to adjust it, it still takes a while to get everything adjusted correctly for each rider. This one is just straight to it.
Now that's interesting that you mentioned that the chain gobbler, which is an object that fits on a lot of the trikes,
Yeah.
that allows you to adjust the boom. Now both of these trikes do have adjustable booms, where the Eco Delta, the front of the frame slides in and out, and then there on the Eco Tad, the actual boom can slide in and out. If you adjust the chain ring in or out, you will want to make sure that you accommodate the chain length itself. There is a lot of adjustability though, because you only have that 7-speed cassette in the back.
Yeah.
And that long cage derailleur will suck up a lot of the chain if you move that in or out. And on both of these trikes, that adjustment is easily done with just a small Allen wrench and loosen the 2 screws on the boom and then slide it forward.
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing about going this path today is that we did not encounter any trains.
Yeah, no trains.
There's no trains.
No hills.
And no rain.
Yeah, no rain like last time.
Yeah, so
much smoother roads.
Much smoother road. So
I think it really fits the Sun Eco Tad and Eco Delta profile.
Right.
That ride you'll be doing.
The Sunseeker Eco brand, that name Eco, I think really is fitting for both the economic aspect of them being a lower price, easier to get into trike, as well as the ecological friendliness. You know, getting out there and riding, being green, that kind of thing, enjoying nature. I think it all kind of fits there.
And with that, just it really lowers the bar of entry into getting into that kind of mindset. Just really getting out, riding a bit more, getting the exercise, you know,
Right.
staying green.
As we were talking about the pricing on these trikes, I want to assure people that even though these are more at the entry-level price points, that these are really excellent quality trikes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of attention to detail. Sun has been making bicycles for a long time. These trikes reflect that. The quality of the materials used, which these are steel frames, and they're gonna hold up. They do use more entry-level components that are definitely upgradable, but at the same time, they're proven components that are gonna last.
Yeah, even the lowest price range of these trikes, these entry-level ones, are still really high quality.
Yeah.
And just because it's a budget option doesn't mean it's going to break on you or it's
Sure.
going to be uncomfortable.
So one thing I think that we'll want to address here in another video is the difference between the entry-level trikes and the next step, or a higher quality trike.
Yeah.
You know, what do you get, you know, when you spend another $2,000? Giving it my all,
There
get
we go,
through
get
that
to the
intersection.
There we go.
Okay, guys, we're heading back into the shop here. And that was a fun little ride we did. And I really do enjoy not riding in the rain.
Yeah.
I really don't mind getting stuck behind the trains though.
It just gives you time to just sit and watch the train go by.
Yeah, I've always been a big train guy. All right, guys, well, we are back at our home base here. Had a nice fun ride around the neighborhood. And we each got to ride the Eco Delta and the Eco Tad from Sunseeker. I think that if you are looking for an economical trike and you want to be able to just get out there and ride, either one of these is a good choice. My opinion is that if you're going to spend a lot of time riding and you were going to choose one of these, I would probably choose the Eco Tad over the Eco Delta, with the exception of if I'm going to be riding with another person and I want to have that ability to join the two trikes together. Specifically, if I was going to add a motor or any other upgrades, I would stick with the Eco Tad over the Eco Delta. But the Eco Delta, I think, is a trike that I would want to have in my garage. So when I want to go ride around the neighborhood and I want to have that high visibility, higher seat height, it's going to fill that need for me.
Yeah, I think it mainly just depends on the type of rider you are, the type of ride that you're looking for, because they're both great entry-level trikes, both for two different kinds of people, really.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, if you have any questions about the Eco Delta or the Eco Tad trikes from Sunseeker, check them out on our website at the links below, or give us a call. And if you want to ride one, just come right into our showroom. No appointment necessary. And we'll be happy to get you on one and let you ride around. You can even ride the same route that we just rode.
And remember, everybody, to relax, spin fast, and ride trikes.
Ride trikes,
We'll
guys.
see you guys next time.
Thanks.